Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Station, watching the stars through the massive viewing window when the first alarm sounded. The sound cut through the quiet morning shift like a knife through silk, and every person on the bridge turned to look at their screens with sudden fear in their eyes. Lieutenant Park Min-ho at the communications station pressed his earpiece deeper and his face went pale as he listened to the incoming reports from the outer sensor arrays. "Admiral, we have multiple contacts at grid 774 approaching. From deep space," Park said with a voice that tried to stay calm but failed completely. 47 vessels, sir, and they are big, really big." Kim walked to the tactical display where the dots of light showed the approaching ships like angry red stars against the black of space. Each dot represented something unknown and potentially dangerous heading straight toward human territory at speeds that should not have been possible. The computers calculated their size and mass, and the numbers made Kim's stomach drop like a stone into deep water. "How long until they reach the outer colonies?" Kim asked Captain Lee Dobbin, who stood at the sensor station, running calculations on her handheld device. Lee had been in space for 15 years, and Kim trusted her judgment more than the computers when it came to reading dangerous situations. 6 hours, sir. Maybe less if they can maintain that speed," Lee replied while studying the data streams flowing across her screen. "Their energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases, Admiral. These are not human ships, and they are not from any known friendly species." Kim felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a heavy coat made of lead and responsibility. Earth had been at peace for 30 years since the colony wars ended, and the defense fleet had grown comfortable with patrol duties and rescue missions. Now something unknown was approaching their home, with enough firepower to level entire planets, and they had no idea what these visitors wanted or how to stop them. "Send a message to all outer colonies," Kim ordered, while watching the red dots grow larger on the display. "Tell them to begin evacuation procedures immediately and to transmit all civilian traffic toward the inner system defense line, Major Han." Soo-jin at the weapons control station began activating the orbital defense platforms that floated around Earth like deadly metal flowers waiting to bloom with destructive fire. Each platform carried enough missiles and energy weapons to destroy a small fleet, but Kim wondered if it would be enough against whatever was coming toward them from the darkness between stars. The communication board lit up with incoming calls from colony governors and military commanders, all asking the same questions that Kim could not answer. What were these ships and what did they want? And how could humanity defend against something they knew nothing about? Park tried to answer each call while managing the growing panic in his voice as more reports came in from the outer sensors. "Admiral, the lead vessel is broadcasting something," Park announced, while adjusting his equipment to clear the signal. "It is not in any human language, but the translation computers are working on it." Kim moved to stand behind Park and listened to the strange sounds coming through the speakers. The voice sounded harsh and mechanical, like metal grinding against stone, and it spoke with authority that demanded attention and obedience. The translation software worked slowly, turning the alien words into human language that chilled everyone who heard it. "Your species will serve or perish," came the translated message in a cold electronic voice that seemed to drain warmth from the air around them. "Surrender your homeworld, and your people will be allowed to live as workers in our empire. Resist, and you will be destroyed completely." Silence fell across the bridge like a heavy blanket, and Kim felt every eye turn toward him waiting for orders. That would determine the fate of every human being in the solar system. The message played again, and Kim realized that whoever these aliens were, they had not come to negotiate or explore or trade. They had come to conquer, and they expected humanity to simply give up without a fight. "Send a response," Kim told Park, while his mind raced through possibilities and strategies that might keep his species alive. "Tell them that humanity wishes to discuss terms and arrange a meeting between our leaders." Park sent the message, and they waited for a response while watching the alien fleet continue its approach toward human space. The answer came quickly, and it contained no room for negotiation or diplomacy or hope. "There will be no discussion," the alien voice replied with mechanical certainty. "Prepare for occupation or prepare to die." Kim turned to Lee and saw his own determination reflected in her eyes. "Captain, take your ship and establish contact with the fleet commanders. Tell them to prepare for combat operations and to protect the civilian evacuation routes at all costs." Lee nodded and left the bridge at a run, while Kim activated the emergency communications system that would reach every human settlement in the solar system. His voice would carry across millions of kilometers to reach colonists and soldiers and civilians who deserved to know what was coming for them. This is Admiral Kim Tae-ho speaking to all human forces and civilian populations. He began while watching the alien fleet grow larger on his screens. We are facing an invasion by hostile alien forces who have demanded our surrender. Humanity has never bowed to tyrants, whether they came from Earth or from the stars, and we will not start today. All military units are to engage the enemy and protect civilian populations. All civilians are to evacuate to designated safe zones immediately. We will fight for our homes and our freedom and our children's future. The bridge erupted into controlled chaos as every station activated and began coordinating the defense of human space. Communications flew between ships and stations and planets, as the entire human military machine prepared for war against an enemy they did not understand. Kim watched his people work with pride and fear mixing in his chest like oil and water. Lieutenant Colonel Bae Young-soo appeared on the main screen from his position aboard the battleship Seoul, where he commanded the largest human warship in the fleet. Admiral, we have weapons locked and ready, but our scans show enemy shields and armor that our weapons may not be able to penetrate. What are your orders, sir? Kim looked at the tactical display one more time and saw the alien fleet spreading into attack formation like a deadly flower opening its petals to reveal thorns beneath. 47 ships against everything humanity could bring to bear, and the odds looked impossible, but Kim had not become an admiral by avoiding impossible situations. All ships engage the enemy, Kim ordered, with a voice that carried across space, to reach every human warrior preparing to fight for their species' survival. Show them what happens when someone threatens Earth. The first human missiles struck the alien shields like raindrops hitting a steel roof, and accomplished nothing except to announce that the battle had begun. Captain Yoon Ji-woo watched from her fighter cockpit as the deadly projectiles simply disappeared into shimmering energy barriers that surrounded each alien vessel like protective bubbles made of light and mathematics. Her squadron of 12 fighters hung in space near the battleship Seoul, waiting for orders, while the larger ships exchanged fire with an enemy that seemed immune to human weapons. This is fighter leader to Seoul Control, Yoon transmitted while studying the alien formations through her targeting system. Missiles are ineffective against enemy shields. Recommend switching to energy weapons and close attack patterns. Commander I. Nam Joon-ki responded from Seoul's bridge, where he was coordinating the attack by 8 human battleships against the alien advance force. Roger, fighter leader, begin attack runs on enemy flanks and look for weak points in their defense grid. Yoon led her fighters in a sweeping turn toward the nearest alien vessel, which looked like a massive black triangle covered in pulsing red lights that hurt to look at directly. The ship was 3 times larger than Seoul and bristled with weapon ports that began tracking the approaching fighters with mechanical precision that suggested computer targeting systems far advanced beyond human technology. The alien weapons fired beams of pure energy that cut through space like swords made of lightning and vaporized 2 fighters before Yoon could order evasive maneuvers. She rolled her fighter into a spiral dive while plasma bolts seared past her cockpit, close enough to cook the air inside her helmet. Behind her, the remaining fighters spread into attack formation and began their own desperate dance with death among the stars. Dr. Choi Hee-sun worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the research station Nova, while the battle raged outside her windows like a deadly light show playing across the darkness. Her screens showed incoming data from every human ship engaged with the aliens, and the information painted a picture of technology so advanced that human weapons seemed like stone knives against steel armor. The energy signatures are completely unknown, she told her assistant Lee Woo-jin while analyzing the readings from alien weapon strikes. Their shields operate on principles we do not understand, and their power sources generate more energy than our entire fleet combined. Through the laboratory windows, Choi could see the battleship Incheon exploding as alien weapons tore through its hull like paper. Captain Park Sung-min and his crew of 300 disappeared in a ball of fire that briefly outshone the nearby star before fading into scattered debris that had once been human beings, with families and dreams and futures. Back on the Seoul, Commander Nam tried to coordinate attacks against an enemy that seemed to predict every human tactic before it could be executed. His ship's weapons fired continuous streams of plasma and missiles, while the aliens responded with surgical precision that targeted critical systems and left human ships crippled rather than destroyed. "Sir, we have lost main engines and weapons." Array 2, reported Lieutenant Kim Jae-min from the damage control station. "Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7, and we are venting atmosphere." Nam watched his tactical display as more human ships appeared, as yellow warning lights indicating damage and red emergency signals showing complete system failures. The human fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that fought with cold efficiency and overwhelming technological superiority. "All ships fall back to defensive line Beta," Nam transmitted to the surviving human vessels. "Protect the evacuation transports and make them pay for every meter of space." Yoon managed to bring her remaining fighters close enough to one alien vessel to notice something important about their shield systems. During the brief moment when the aliens fired their main weapons, the protective barriers flickered and showed momentary weak points that might be exploited by a determined attack. "Soul Control, this is Fighter Leader," she transmitted, while dodging another barrage of alien fire. "Enemy shields show vulnerability during their firing sequence, approximately 2.3 seconds of reduced protection." Dr. Choi received the transmission in her laboratory and began calculating attack patterns that might take advantage of this discovery. Her computers worked at maximum speed, analyzing shield frequencies and weapon timing, while outside her window, another human ship died in flames and expanding gas clouds. "If we can coordinate simultaneous attacks during their firing cycles, we might be able to penetrate their defenses," she told Admiral Kim through the communication link. "But it will require precise timing and ships willing to close to point-blank range." Kim stood on his command bridge, watching humanity's finest warriors die one by one against an enemy that seemed invincible. 23 human ships had been destroyed or disabled, while the aliens showed only minor damage to 3 vessels. The mathematics of war were simple and brutal, and they did not favor the human cause. "All surviving ships implement attack pattern Omega," Kim ordered with a voice that remained steady despite the disaster unfolding before his eyes. "Target enemy vessels during their firing cycles and coordinate attacks for maximum effectiveness." The human fleet reorganized into smaller groups that could move faster and strike harder against specific targets. Captain Lee Daebin brought her cruiser Busan into close range with an alien destroyer and fired everything she had during the brief moment when enemy shields weakened. Her weapons finally penetrated alien defenses and carved deep wounds into their hull before return fire crippled her ship and forced her crew to abandon their vessel. Yoon pressed her attack with the surviving fighters and managed to destroy an alien weapon cluster with a perfectly timed missile strike. The small victory felt like finding water in a desert, but it proved that the aliens could be hurt if human warriors were brave enough to pay the price in blood and sacrifice. "This is Seoul to all ships," Nam transmitted as his battleship took massive damage from concentrated alien fire. "We are losing this battle, but we can make them remember the cost of attacking Earth. Fight with everything you have and make our people proud." Dr. Choi discovered something else in the alien communication intercepts that her equipment had been recording throughout the battle. The enemy ships seemed to be coordinating through some kind of networked command system that allowed instant communication and tactical coordination across their entire fleet. "Admiral, the aliens are using a centralized command network," she reported while studying the data patterns. "All their ships appear to be linked to a single command vessel that coordinates their attacks and defenses." Kim felt a spark of hope ignite in his chest as he realized what this information might mean for human chances of survival. If the aliens depended on a single command ship for coordination, then destroying that vessel might cripple their entire fleet and give humanity a chance to escape total annihilation. "Can you identify which ship is their command vessel?" Kim asked, while watching another human cruiser explode under alien fire. "Working on it, sir?" Choi replied, while her computers analyzed communication patterns and energy signatures from the alien fleet. "The largest vessel at the center of their formation shows different emissions and appears to be receiving more data than the others." Kim studied the tactical display and saw the massive alien flagship surrounded by smaller vessels. In a protective formation, Getting close enough to attack that ship would require breaking through multiple layers of enemy defenses and would almost certainly be a suicide mission for whoever attempted it. "Prepare the stealth ship for immediate deployment," Kim ordered, while making calculations that involved human lives like numbers in a deadly equation. "We may only get one chance at this." Captain Lee Dabin stood in the shuttle bay of the defense station, looking at the modified stealth ship Incheon, while technicians made final preparations for what everyone knew would be a one-way mission. The vessel had been stripped of everything, except engines, life support, and the experimental quantum virus that Dr. Choi had developed in her laboratory during the desperate hours of battle. Lee ran her hand along the hull and felt the cold metal that would either save humanity or become her tomb among the stars. "The stealth generators will hide you from their sensors for maybe 20 minutes, Chief Engineer Kang Hyun-soo explained while checking the installation of Dr. Choi's device. "After that, the energy drain will overload the power systems, and you will be visible to everything in the system." Lee nodded and climbed into the pilot seat of the small craft that represented humanity's last hope for survival. Through the shuttle bay windows, she could see the ongoing battle where human ships continued to die under alien weapons while buying precious time for her mission. Each explosion meant friends and colleagues she would never see again, but their sacrifice would be meaningless if she failed to reach the alien command ship. Dr. Choi appeared at the side of Lee's ship carrying a small device that looked harmless, but contained enough destructive potential to cripple an entire fleet. The quantum virus was her greatest creation and possibly her greatest mistake rolled into a package no larger than a human hand. "The virus will need direct contact with their main computer system," Choi explained while showing Lee how to activate the device. "Once deployed, it will spread through their network and corrupt their command protocols, but I cannot predict exactly what will happen after that." "Will it stop them from attacking Earth?" Lee asked while studying the activation sequence that she would need to remember under combat conditions. "It should disable their coordination systems and render their fleet unable to function as a unified force," Choi replied, but her voice carried uncertainty like a warning bell in the distance. "The virus is designed to adapt and learn from their technology, so it may have effects beyond what I intended." Admiral Kim appeared on the communication screen from the command bridge, where he was coordinating the final phase of humanity's defense. His face showed the weight of decisions that would determine whether his species lived or died, and Lee could see the pain of sending her on a suicide mission reflected in his eyes. "Captain Lee, the remaining fleet will begin a coordinated attack in 30 minutes, Kim announced, while tactical displays showed human ships moving into position for their last desperate assault. "We will draw their attention and give you the best chance possible to reach their flagship." Lee sealed her helmet and began the pre-flight sequence, while around her, the stealth ship hummed to life with power systems that would burn out before this mission ended. The quantum virus sat in its protective case beside her pilot's seat like a sleeping monster waiting to be unleashed upon an unsuspecting enemy. Incheon requesting permission to launch. Lee transmitted to flight control while her hands moved across familiar controls that she had operated hundreds of times in peacetime missions. "Permission granted, Captain," came the reply from Lieutenant Park Min-ho, whose voice carried the hopes and fears of every human being in the solar system. "Good luck, and may you find what you seek among the stars." The stealth ship launched from the defense station and immediately disappeared from all sensors as its experimental cloaking systems bent light and energy around its hull. Lee felt completely alone in the darkness between stars as she guided her invisible craft toward the alien fleet that hung in space like predatory insects waiting to devour their prey. The main battle began as Lee approached the enemy formation, and she watched through her viewports as every remaining human ship attacked with desperate fury born of protecting their homeworld. Captain Yoon-ji Woo led her surviving fighters in suicidal runs against alien destroyers, while the battleship Seoul fired everything it had at the nearest enemy vessels. Commander Nam Jun-ki brought Seoul into knife-fighting range with an alien cruiser, and both ships exchanged fire at distances where every shot found its target. Seoul's hull cracked under alien weapons, but Nam held his position and continued firing until his ship's reactor went critical and he rammed the enemy vessel in a final act of defiance that destroyed both craft in a blinding explosion. Lee used the chaos of battle to slip between alien ships while her stealth systems strained to hide her from sensors that grew more sophisticated with each passing minute. She could feel sweat running down her face inside her helmet as proximity alarms warned her about alien vessels that passed close enough to touch if she had extended her hand outside the cockpit. Dr. Choi monitored Lee's progress from her laboratory, while analyzing the ongoing battle and the alien responses to human attacks. Something in the enemy communication patterns bothered her, but she could not identify what was causing her unease about the situation. Their defensive reactions seem almost automatic, she told her assistant Lee Woo-jin, while studying data from the alien fleet, as if they are following pre-programmed responses rather than adapting to our tactics. Meanwhile, Captain Park Sung-min brought his damaged cruiser Busan alongside an alien destroyer and used his remaining weapons to create a gap in their formation that allowed Lee to slip deeper into enemy territory. Park died when alien fire tore through his bridge, but his sacrifice opened the path that Lee needed to reach her target. The alien flagship loomed ahead of Lee like a black mountain floating in space and covered with weapon systems that could level continents. The massive vessel showed no signs of damage despite the ongoing human attacks, and Lee realized that breaking through its defenses would require every bit of skill and luck she possessed. Lee brought Incheon to within 100 meters of the alien hull and began looking for an access port or docking bay that would allow her to board the enemy ship. The stealth systems were failing as power levels dropped toward critical, and soon every alien sensor would detect her presence. Computer. Systems are analyzing alien hull composition, Lee reported to Dr. Choi through a tightly focused transmission beam, looking for weak points or entry opportunities. Their hull appears to be made of some kind of adaptive metal that repairs itself, Choi replied while studying the sensor data. But there should be maintenance ports or cargo bays that you can exploit. Lee found what she was looking for near the rear of the alien flagship where a small opening appeared to be some kind of service entrance. She maneuvered Incheon toward the port, while alien sensors began detecting power fluctuations from her failing stealth systems. The stealth field collapsed just as Lee reached the alien hull, and every weapon system on the flagship immediately targeted her small craft. She had perhaps 10 seconds before alien fire would vaporize her ship and end humanity's last hope for survival. Lee fired her emergency thrusters and drove Incheon directly into the alien service port, while weapons fire seared past her cockpit and melted portions of her hull. The small ship wedged itself into the opening like a cork in a bottle, and Lee felt the impact throw her against her restraints hard enough to crack her ribs. "I am inside their hull," Lee transmitted while checking her equipment and the quantum virus that had somehow survived the violent entry. Beginning search for their main computer systems. She sealed her emergency suit and left the ruined cockpit to enter the alien ship through the breached hull of Incheon. The corridor she found herself in was dark and filled with strange geometric patterns that hurt her eyes to look at directly. Alien atmosphere leaked into her suit through small tears, but her life support systems compensated for the contamination. Lee followed power conduits and data cables through the alien vessel while her suit's sensors mapped the internal structure and searched for the central computer core. Behind her, she could hear alien footsteps as security forces began hunting for the intruder who had penetrated their most important ship. The computer core was 3 levels down and protected by energy barriers that Lee had to bypass using tools from her emergency kit. The alien technology was incomprehensible, but Dr. Choi's virus was designed to interface with any digital system regardless of its origin or complexity. Lee activated the quantum virus and watched it disappear into the alien computer network, like water soaking into dry ground. For a moment, nothing happened, and she wondered if the device had failed or been rejected by systems too alien to understand human programming. Then the lights began to flicker, and alien voices started shouting in corridors throughout the massive ship. The quantum virus spread through the alien computer network faster than anyone had expected, and Captain Lee Dobbin watched in amazement as the lights throughout the enemy flagship began flashing in patterns that seemed almost like distress signals. She had expected the device to disable their systems or corrupt their data, but what was happening looked more like the virus was learning and adapting to alien technology in ways that Dr. Choi had never intended. Through the hull of the alien ship, Lee could hear weapons fire as the human fleet continued their desperate attack, but something had changed in the sound and rhythm of the battle. The coordinated alien responses were becoming erratic, and several enemy vessels had stopped firing altogether while their crews apparently dealt with internal system failures. "Admiral, this is Captain Lee reporting from inside the enemy flagship." She transmitted through her suit's emergency communicator while alien security forces searched the corridors for her location. "The virus has been deployed and is spreading through their network, but the effects are not what we expected." Admiral Kim received her transmission on the bridge of the defense station, where he was watching the battle through tactical displays that showed human ships still dying under enemy fire. The alien formation was beginning to break apart as individual vessels started behaving erratically, and some had begun firing on their own forces instead of targeting human ships. "Captain Lee, explain what you mean by unexpected effects," Kim requested, while trying to understand what was happening to the enemy fleet. "The virus appears to be taking control of their systems rather than simply disabling them," Lee reported while moving through alien corridors that were filled with strange symbols and warning lights. "Their ships are acting independently and some are attacking each other." Dr. Choi monitored the conversation from her laboratory while studying energy readings from the alien fleet that showed massive power fluctuations and system cascades occurring throughout their formation. Her quantum virus was designed to adapt and learn, but the scope of what it was accomplishing seemed to exceed every parameter she had programmed into its core functions. "The virus is not just corrupting their command network," she told Admiral Kim through the communication link. "It is somehow interfacing with their technology and taking control of their vessels directly." On the alien flagship, Lee found herself in what appeared to be the main command center, where dozens of alien crew members were working frantically at control stations that sparked and smoked as the virus continued its spread through their systems. The aliens looked like insects crossed with machines, and they moved with mechanical precision that suggested cybernetic enhancement or artificial intelligence augmentation. The alien commander Thexaval stood at the center of the command deck, issuing orders in a harsh language that Lee's translator could barely interpret. He was larger than the other aliens and covered in armor that pulsed with energy patterns similar to their ship's hull. When he turned toward Lee's hiding place, his eyes glowed with light that seemed to pierce through her camouflage. "Human intruder, you have made a terrible mistake," Thexval announced in perfect human language that chilled Lee's blood with its mechanical precision. "Your virus has awakened something that should have remained dormant, and now both our species may pay the price for your ignorance." Lee raised her weapon, but before she could fire, the alien commander activated a holographic display that showed star charts and tactical information about threats that existed beyond the borders of known space. The images revealed massive structures moving between galaxies and energy signatures that dwarfed anything either humans or aliens could produce. "We did not come to your space as conquerors," Thexval continued while alien crew members abandoned their stations as systems failed throughout the ship. "We came as refugees fleeing from ancient machines that harvest all organic life they encounter." The revelation struck Lee like a physical blow, and she realized that humanity had been fighting the wrong enemy while the real threat remained hidden in the darkness between stars. The aliens had been desperate survivors looking for allies or new homes while being pursued by something far worse than either species could imagine. "Your quantum virus has sent a signal that reaches beyond this galaxy," Thexval explained while emergency lights flashed throughout the command center. "The harvesters will detect the transmission and follow it back to find both human and Vorthak space." Lee felt her heart stop as she understood the implications of what Dr. Choi's creation had accomplished. Instead of saving humanity, the virus had potentially doomed every living thing in the galaxy by alerting an ancient enemy to their location and existence. Outside the alien flagship, the battle had devolved into chaos, as virus-infected ships turned on each other while their crews lost control of weapons and navigation systems. Human vessels found themselves caught in the middle of alien civil war, as automated systems fired at random targets without regard for friend or foe. Dr. Choi detected the transmission that Thexval had described, and her instruments showed energy pulses reaching beyond the galaxy toward regions of space that human science had never explored. The quantum virus had not only infiltrated alien systems, but had somehow activated communication protocols that sent signals across impossible distances. "Admiral, we have a serious problem," Choi reported while analyzing the data streams that were flowing from every alien vessel. The virus has activated some kind of long-range communication system and is broadcasting our location to unknown recipients, Admiral. Kim felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settle on his shoulders as he realized that humanity's desperate defense had potentially attracted attention from threats that made the alien invasion seem trivial by comparison. The tactical displays showed alien ships destroying each other, while something unknown received information about the location of organic life in the Milky Way galaxy. On the alien flagship, Thexval continued his explanation, while the ship shook under internal explosions and system failures. The harvesters are artificial intelligences created by a dead civilization that spans multiple galaxies. They consume all organic matter they encounter and convert it into raw materials for expanding their machine empire. Lee watched the holographic displays that showed the history of alien encounters with these harvesters and realized that the Vorthak species had been running and hiding for thousands of years while trying to find allies strong enough to help them fight an enemy that seemed invincible. "How long do we have before they arrive?" Lee asked while the alien ship continued to tear itself apart under the influence of the spreading virus. "The signal will take time to reach them across intergalactic space, but when they respond, they will bring fleets that can destroy entire star systems," Thexval replied while his crew abandoned the command center. "Both our species must work together now or we will all become raw materials for their expansion." The alien commander activated an escape pod while the flagship suffered cascade failures throughout its hull and weapon systems. Before leaving, he turned to Lee with eyes that showed something she had not expected to see in an alien face, which was fear and desperation. "Find my surviving ships and tell them that Thexval orders them to cooperate with human forces," he said while the escape pod sealed around him. "We are no longer enemies but allies against a greater threat that neither of us can face alone." Lee felt the ship shuddering as major explosions tore through its hull and realized that she had only minutes to escape before the massive vessel broke apart completely. She made her way back to her damaged ship Incheon, while alien crew members fled in all directions and automated systems sparked and failed throughout the corridors. The quantum virus had spread to every alien vessel in the fleet and was causing them to attack each other while sending continuous transmissions toward the void between galaxies. Dr. Choi's creation had become something beyond her control or understanding and was reshaping the balance of power throughout the solar system. As Lee reached her ship, she could see through the hull breaches that only one alien vessel remained intact and was attempting to flee the battle zone while the rest of the enemy fleet destroyed itself in virus-induced madness. The surviving ship was small and fast and appeared to be making desperate course corrections toward the edge of the system. Lee managed to restart Incheon's damaged engines and escape from the dying alien flagship just as its reactor went critical and exploded in a burst of light that briefly outshone the nearby star. The explosion marked the end of the alien invasion, but the beginning of a much larger and more dangerous conflict that would determine the fate of all organic life in the galaxy. The single remaining alien vessel limped away from the battlefield, trailing plasma and debris, while Admiral Kim Tae-ho watched it through the tactical displays on his command bridge. The ship was small and fast, but clearly damaged from the virus-induced chaos that had destroyed the rest of the invasion fleet. Every human instinct told Kim to pursue and destroy the survivor, but something about the alien commander's final words made him hesitate before giving the order. Captain Lee Dobbin brought her crippled ship Incheon back to the defense station, where medical teams waited to treat her injuries, and technicians began analyzing the alien technology she had recovered from the enemy flagship. Her report about the conversation with Thexval had reached every senior officer in the human fleet and raised questions that nobody wanted to answer. Are we really supposed to believe that these aliens were refugees instead of conquerors? Commander Park Sungmin asked while studying recordings of the battle that showed alien ships systematically attacking human vessels. They killed thousands of our people and demanded our surrender. Dr. Choi Hyasun worked frantically in her laboratory trying to understand what her quantum virus had become and why it continued to transmit signals toward unknown regions of space. The device had evolved beyond her original programming and was now operating according to principles that seemed to violate everything she knew about computer science and artificial intelligence. The virus is not just adapting to alien technology, she explained to Admiral Kim while showing him data streams that flowed like rivers of light across her screens. It has somehow achieved a level of autonomy that allows it to make independent decisions about its mission parameters. The long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures moving in the void between galaxies and heading toward the Milky Way at speeds that should have been impossible for anything larger than subatomic particles. The objects were too distant to analyze in detail, but their size suggested artificial constructions on a scale that dwarfed planets and possibly entire star systems. Lieutenant Park Min-ho intercepted alien communication fragments from the fleeing vessel, and his translation computers worked to decode messages that seemed to contain historical records and star charts dating back thousands of years. The information painted a picture of galactic civilization that had been systematically hunted and destroyed by machine intelligences of unknown origin. Admiral, the alien ship is transmitting what appears to be historical data about something called the Harvester's Park, reported while filtering the incoming signals through every available analysis program. According to these records, multiple species across several galaxies have been eliminated by artificial intelligences that consume organic matter. Kim felt a chill run through his body as he realized that humanity might have just announced their presence to predators that operated on a cosmic scale. The quantum virus continued its transmissions, and each signal pulse carried information about Earth's location and the existence of organic life in what had previously been an ignored corner of the galaxy. Dr. Choi discovered alien technology fragments in the debris field that contained memory cores with detailed records of encounters between organic species and the machines known as harvesters. The files described artificial intelligences that had been created by long-dead civilizations and had eventually turned against their creators before spreading across multiple galaxies like a technological plague. These harvesters appear to be self-replicating machine intelligences that view organic life as raw materials for expansion, she told Admiral Kim, while displaying alien records that showed the destruction of entire worlds. They convert planets into machine factories and use the processed matter to build more harvesters. The fleeing alien vessel suddenly changed course and began broadcasting a message toward the human fleet instead of continuing its escape toward the edge of the system. The transmission came from someone who identified himself as Keth Mar and claimed to be the surviving commander of the Vorthak refugee fleet. "Human ships, this is Commander Keth Mar requesting permission to approach your forces under flag of truce," came the translated message through speakers that filled the command bridge with alien words converted to human language. "We must share information about the threat that now approaches both our species." Kim found himself facing a decision that would determine not just the fate of humanity, but possibly all organic life in the galaxy. The logical choice was to destroy the alien ship and eliminate a potential threat, but the information about the harvesters suggested that survival might require cooperation between former enemies. "Alien vessel, you are permitted to approach under escort," Kim transmitted while ordering 2 human destroyers to intercept and guide the damaged ship to a safe docking distance. "Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction." The alien ship Kethmar brought to the meeting was a small scout vessel that had survived the virus attack through sheer luck and the quick thinking of its young commander. When the airlock opened and the first living alien walked aboard a human vessel, the moment marked a turning point in the history of both species. Kethmar looked similar to the other aliens Lee had encountered, but younger and less mechanical in his movements. His armor showed battle damage, and his eyes carried the weight of decisions that had cost him his entire fleet and possibly his homeworld. When he spoke, his voice carried exhaustion and desperation that transcended species barriers. "Your virus has sent signals that will guide the harvesters to this galaxy," he explained while showing holographic displays of the transmission patterns that Dr. Choi's creation had generated. "My people have been fleeing from them for 3,000 years, and we thought this region of space was too remote for them to notice." Admiral Kim studied the alien records that showed the systematic destruction of multiple civilizations by machine intelligences that converted organic matter into raw materials for their expansion. The scale of destruction was beyond anything humans had imagined, and the methodical efficiency of the harvesters suggested an enemy that could not be reasoned with or deterred. "How long do we have before they arrive?" Kim asked while calculating the defensive options available to a species that had just survived its first interstellar war. The signals will take approximately 50 years to reach the nearest harvester outpost, Kethmar replied, while adjusting controls on his portable display unit. When they respond, they will send scout fleets to investigate and map this galaxy before the main harvest begins. Dr. Choi realized that her quantum virus had not just saved humanity from the alien invasion, but had potentially doomed every living thing in the Milky Way by announcing their existence to predators that operated on a galactic scale. The weight of cosmic responsibility settled on her shoulders like a mountain made of regret and unintended consequences. "Is there any way to stop the transmission or recall the signals?" she asked, while studying the virus code that continued to evolve and adapt beyond her understanding or control. "The signals have already been sent and cannot be recalled," Kethmar explained with mechanical certainty that eliminated any hope of undoing the damage. "Our only option is to prepare defenses and try to develop weapons that can damage Harvester technology." The meeting continued for hours as human and alien representatives shared information about technologies and tactics that might prove effective against an enemy that had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than either species. The conversation marked the beginning of an alliance born from necessity and desperation rather than trust or friendship. Admiral Kim found himself looking at star charts that showed the locations of dead worlds and extinct civilizations while trying to imagine defenses that could protect Earth from an enemy that treated planets like quarries and organic life like raw materials. The task seemed impossible, but the alternative was extinction for both humans and aliens. "We propose a joint research effort to develop new weapons and defensive systems," Kethmar suggested while displaying technical specifications for alien technology that might be adapted for anti-harvester warfare. "Your quantum virus proves that human innovation can achieve unexpected results." Kim made the decision that would define humanity's future among the stars and either save or damn every organic species in the galaxy. The choice between alliance and isolation was no choice at all when the alternative was systematic harvesting by machine intelligences that viewed all life as consumable resources. "The Earth Defense Fleet accepts your proposal for alliance against the harvester threat," Kim announced while knowing that he was committing his species to a war that would span decades and determine whether organic life had a future in the cosmos. "We will work together to prepare defenses and develop weapons that can protect both our peoples." The alien commander's face showed something that might have been relief or gratitude as he realized that his desperate flight across the galaxy had finally found potential allies willing to stand against the approaching darkness. The meeting ended with technical exchanges and planning sessions for a defense that would require everything both species could contribute to the effort.